kuhusu taarifa ambazo zimechipuka jioni hii, kwa sababu tunapoangalia ukurasa wao ambako fomu 34A zinawasilishwa, 74.22% ya fomu hizo zimeweza kupokelewa, ambazo ni takriban fomu 34,312. Haswa hii inamaanisha nini kwa mtazamaji ambaye anafuatilia kujua upigaji kura ambao umefanyika hii leo?
Asante sana Zubeda. Katika mnajibu ya kutayarisha matokeo, kwanza sehemu ya kwanza ni kwamba wale presiding officer katika vituo wakimaliza kunakili yale matokeo, wanaipiga picha, wanaituma kwa mtandao. Kwa hivyo hiyo tunaiona ni hatua ya kwanza. Ikishafika pale, basi kuna portal ambapo watu wote wanaweza kwenda huko ka download wakaona hizo form, matokeo yako vipi. Pili, kuna agents ambao wako katika polling station wanapewa copy za matokeo. Tatu, kuna media pia wako pale katika vituo, wanaonesha watu jinsi ya mahesabu yanavyofanywa. Kuna kile katika ripoti, na pia wao wanaweza kupiga picha ile matokeo. Hiyo ni hatua moja. Ya pili, kama tume sasa tunangoja zile form 34A. Presiding officer ataenda nazo katika kituo cha kwanza constituency Tallying Center. Akifika pale, basi yule mkubwa wa pale returning officer atazikusanya zote vituo vyote katika ile constituency zake. Inaweza kuwa yuko na vituo 200, wengine 1000 kulingana na upana wa kile kituo. Atajumuisha vyote, aweke katika file, atengeneze ile form inaitwa 34B. 34B sasa ni kama vile A ni level kiwango cha kwanza, unaenda ngazi ya pili ndio 34B. Anaitengeneza pale, imejumuisha kila kitu, lakini ataweka zile 34A ambazo zimetoka kwa polling station zake pamoja katika file, na atengeneze copy wale presidential agents azilete hapa ukumbini. Zikishafika tutaziangalia, tunakili kwamba ni original, ni zile form halisia, kwa sababu form zetu ziko na alama za siri ambazo ni za IEBC. Tukizishazipata tunazikubali, kisha tunaanza kujumuisha yale matokeo. Katika kuangalia, tunaangalia ile form ambayo ilitumwa na hii nyingine. Kwa hivyo tunaweka entry. Tunaendelea mpaka tumalize zote.
Kwa hivyo sasa, vile ambavyo tunaona sasa, kuna uwezekano wa matokeo haya kubadilika. Je, haya tunayoyaona ndio yatatumiwa kuamua ni nani ambaye ni mshindi, nani atakuwa rais mteule? Na haswa tunapoona kwamba imefikia 74%, ni kwamba kuna uwezekano tukamjua rais usiku wa leo ama kesho.
Vile tumefungua mlango wazi kwa vyombo vya habari kunakili kando, vyama vya kisiasa kunakili kando, tunatarajia ikifika asubuhi tutakuwa tunajua nani ameongoza. Kando na halo, watu watajua tu zile nambari, nani yuko mbele, nani yuko nyuma. Lakini sisi kama tume sasa tutachukua zile form, tuziangalie, tuzikague. Kuna presiding officers wengine utakuta amenakili zile nambari, lakini kujumulisha pale chini total ni nyingi kuliko voters kwa police station. Kwa hivyo hiyo tunaicancel. Haitaongeza hesabu, manake yameharibu.
Lakini ikikuwa cancelled inakuwa vipi? Kwa sababu wengi wanatarajia kwamba hizo form zote ndio zitatumika kuamua ni nani mshindi na alipata kura gani.
Zile form zitakuja, nazo tutazikagua. Lazima tuhakikishe kwamba yale mahesabu yamefanya vizuri. Lakini atatueleza vipi kwamba amepata total ambayo iko juu zaidi kuliko wapiga kura? Hapo kuna udanganyifu. Kwa hivyo hiyo inatupiliwa kando. Kwa hivyo tutatumia yale matokeo, kutumia zile form ambazo zitakuja. Hizo form ndo zile ambazo zilitangazwa katika polling station, lakini tutazihakiki kwanza. Kisha tujumulishe zote, alafu tutangaze mshindi.
Na shughuli hiyo inatarajiwa kuchukua muda gani kabla ya kukamilika, ili tujue mshindi ni nani haswa, kulingana na ripoti ambayo tumepewa na mwenyekiti wako kwamba tutajua mshindi kutoka ukumbi huu wa Bomas? Itachukua muda gani?
Leo tumefungua ukumbi katika awamu ya pili ya kutangaza matokeo, na tunangojea returning officer wa kwanza aje na faili yake tuanze kuhesabu. Kwa hivyo tunatarajia pengine kesho asubuhi Yule ambao atakuwa anamfika hapa kwanza, tutaanza na kuangalia tuhakiki ya makaratasi yake. Tukishaanza kesho, tuko na returning officer 291. Nasema na moja kwa sababu ni huyo mmoja huyo ni wa diaspora. Atuletee kila kitu chake, tuzikague na tufanye mahesabu. Inaweza ikatuchukua kama siku 3, siku 4. Lakini tunataka kuweka bidii. Mnaona katika upeperushaji wa majibu matokeo saizi tuko 70% tunatarajia kufikia saa 1 ama 2 kuendelea tutakuwa tushamaliza zote, lakini pia inategemea wale watakuwa wamemaliza. Wakishamaliza ndo wanatumana. Wakimaliza wanatuma.
Na kweli unaweza kuhakikishia Wakenya kwamba uchaguzi huu umekuwa ni wa huru na wa haki, ikizingatiwa zile dosari ambazo tumezishuhudia tangu jana kufikia kiwango ambapo kuna kura ambazo zimesitishwa katika maeneo 8. Haswa kweli mmetendea haki wa Kenya katika uchaguzi huu?
Wacha nikwambie, hakuna uchaguzi ambao umekuwa wawazi kama huu wa mwaka wa 2022. Tumetembea na washikadau katika kila jambo, tumewahusisha na wametupatia wasia wao na tumeweza kutekeleza. Tumefungua nafasi zetu kwa vyombo vya habari. Hakujawahi kuwa hivyo kwamba mnaonesha polling stations iko vipi na mahesabu yanahesabiwa.
Lakini hapa tuko na uchaguzi ambao umefutiliwa mbali wa ugavana Mombasa, Kakamega kwa sababu ya mkanganyiko wa picha. Ilifikia wapi kufanyika kitu kama hicho?
Mimi nazungumzia swala la kwamba uchaguzi umekuwa wa haki na usawa. Ile ya Mombasa na Kakamega kufutiliwa ni kwa sababu tutaka haki na usawa. Hatungeweza kuwapatia makaratasi ambazo picha zimebadilika. Pale unajua gavana wako unaenda kumchagua ni mtu fulani, ukifika umpata sura nyingine, itakuwa kweli ni haki?
Lakini Mkenya anataka kujua ilifanyika vipi.
Ndio
kwamba kuna mkanganyiko wa picha na maelezo.
Tumweleza Zubeda kwamba mnakumbuka kulikuwa na kesi za Mombasa na Kakamega. Hizo ndizo zililetwa mwisho. Katika kule kuwasilishwa mwisho ndo pengine kampuni ya kuchapisha ikachanganyikiwa, picha zikakuwa tofauti. Kando na hivyo, uchaguzi lazima uwe wa sawa. Hakuna vile tutawapatia watu jina ni mtu fulani, picha ni sura ya mtu mwingine. Kwa hivyo lazima kila mtu apewe haki yake, hata wale wagombea viti lazima pia wapewe haki yao. Sasa ndio maana tumeweka tarehe 23 tufanye tena katika zile sehemu ambazo tumeziweka kando. Kwa sababu tu haitakuwa haki tukilazimisha wafanye.
Na ndio sababu nauliza maswali haya kwa sababu ndio maswali wa Kenya wanauliza. Ni kwamba hatukuwa na makamishna wawe pale kuchunguza na kufuatilia nani ni picha gani inachapishwa na kadhalika, au mnapopeana picha na maelezo mnaiacha alafu mnarudi Kenya, wale ambao wamepewa kandarasi wanafanya kazi. Ilifikia wapi haswa?
Acha nikueleze jambo. Nilikuwa mmoja wao wa makomishna ambao tulienda awamu ya mwisho na tukaenda na washikadau wa kiwango cha uchaguzi wa urais. Tulienda kule na makataa yetu ilikuwa ni kuona zile karatasi za urais na kuhakikisha zimefanywa vizuri, lakini hata ile wakati wetu ukifika kurudi, ilikuwa kesi ya Mombasa ilikuwa haijamalizika. Kwa hivyo zile zingine tuliziona, lakini ile ya Mombasa na Kakamega ilikuwa bado.
Lakini Kakamega nini ambacho kilifanya ikawa hivyo? Ndio Mombasa kulikuwa na kesi, Kakamega nini?
Tunaambiwa kulikuwa na picha ya mgombea wa Kirinyaga ambayo ilitokezea hapo. Kwa hivyo nafikiria ni ile picha zilipishana ndio kanini, lakini masuala hayo itakuwa bora wanaitwaje wale wafanyikazi wa tume waulizwe kwa undani. Lakini kama nini, sisi ni policy level, tunapeana policy na kazi ifanye.
Wafanyakazi wa tume ni kina nani?
Wafanyakazi wa tume
wenye ambao wanafaa kuulizwa
secretariat.
Kwa hivyo wao ndio walizembea katika kazi hii, ndio wamewasababishia Wakenya madhila ambayo wako nayo.
Ningesema tupatie muda swali hilo liangaliwe kwa ndani. Lakini hatutachukua kwamba ilikuwa ni makosa ya tume, manake kampuni imechukua responsibility na taenda kutupatia makaratasi tena.
Lakini makaratasi pia karatasi zilipofika humu nchini pia kukawa na mkanganyiko, karatasi za huku zikajipata kule zikajipata. Haswa nini ambacho kilifanyika? Hata katika kaunti ya Nandi Hills leo, eneo bunge la Nandi Hills pia kukawa kwamba karatasi za MCA hazipo. Haswa kumekuwa na uangalifu na umakinifu katika shughuli hii zima, kwa sababu Wakenya walijitokeza kwenda kupiga kura, kisha wanapofika katika maeneo ya kupigia kura karatasi hazipo. Hasa mkanganyiko huo nao ukatokana na nini?
Mkanganyiko huo ulichanganyika katika ile kutoa material katika warehouse kuzipeleka mashinani, kwa hivyo zikachanganyikana. Zingine zilikuwa ni vifurushi vidogo vile, packets zilikuwa zinawekwa 54 packets katika kifurushi kimoja, na kama county ama constituency ni ndogo, utakuta kuna nyingine imebaki ambacho ni kifurushi kidogo. Kwa hivyo hiyo ikakuwa kuna kupishana, ikaenda kwingine. Lakini punde tu tulipojua, tulichukua choppers, tuhakikisha makaratasi yamefika pale ambapo zilikuwa zinatakikana. Zile ambazo tumehairisha ni zile ambazo zilikuwa na shida ya uchapishaji.
Na Nandi Hills wameweza kupiga kura yao, wale ambao hawakupata karatasi za MCA, kwa sababu tuliwasikia pale hata wawaniaji wenyewe wakijitokeza pale wakisema huu uchaguzi ufutiliwe mbali. Je, wamepewa nafasi kupiga kura?
Wamepewa nafasi ya kupiga kura. Na yale maswala yote ambao watu wakupewa nafasi, nafikiria tumeyazungumzia. Ni vile sina ile orodha ya zile ambazo tumeziarisha. Na kuarisha kule tumewapatia wiki 2. Tukishamaliza huu uchaguzi wa urais, uchaguzi mkuu, tufanye ile maredio ya ule uchaguzi.
Lakini pia huwa kuna labeling ambayo inafanywa kwamba kura hizi ni za ugavana Meru, kura hizi ni za ugavana Lamu, MCA huku. Kwa sababu najaribu kuelewa ni vipi kukawa na mkanganyiko, karatasi za eneo fulani zinajipata katika maeneo mengine, hata kama ni kwa vifurushi zinawekwa. Haswa huo mkanganyiko ni kwamba wale ambao wametukwa jukumu la kusambaza karatasi hizo hawana umakinifu au haswa ulegevu wapi? Walipitiliwa nitasema. IEBC imekosea Wakenya kweli? Mna sababu ya kuwaomba msamaha?
Wacha tuwapatie ripoti kamili. Nikubalie tuwapatie Wakenya ripoti kamili. Wacha tumalize huu uchaguzi, tutarudia hili jambo. Ni swala ambalo tutalirudia na tuwapatie ripoti kamili, ni nini kiliendelea, ni lili kilitokea, na hata to take responsibility. Yes, kwa sababu ni lazima tuchukue, kwa Kiswahili tutasemaje? Responsibility.
Kila mtu ajukumike. Kila mtu ajukumike. Na pia mtajukumika kwa sababu mlitoa ahadi kwa Wakenya kwamba kila kituo cha kupigia kura kitakuwa na vifaa vya kuwatambua 6. Wengi wameenda wanapata kile kifaa kimoja kiko pale hakiwatambui. Wengi wao wakaenda nyumbani bila kupiga kura. Je, hilo pia mtajukumikia kwa sababu mliahidi kwamba kutakuwa na vifaa 6 katika kila kituo?
Jambo hili lilipokuja katika masikio yetu kama commissioners, tulipeana ujumbe kwamba wakubaliwe kila mtu ambaye anakuja katika kituo na waweze kunakili. Kuna ile tunasema polling station diary, wanakili kwamba huyu mtu alama zake za vidole asizikuweza kuonekaniwa, tumemwidentify kutumia mbinu hii. Na hiyo ni jambo rahisi. Sasa sijui kwa nini watu walienda zao nyumbani.
Kwa sababu wengi wao walitupigia simu. Mimi fulani pia nilipokea simu kutoka kwa watu fulani wakisema kwamba wao wameambiwa na wale clerks hakuna mbinu nyingine itatumika, vifaa kama havioni na maelezo yao ama vidole vyao waende nyumbani. Na ndio sababu wengi wao walienda nyumbani.
Zubeda, ndio maana tuko na call center hapo. Tuko na laini ambazo watu wanapiga bure. Na katika kila wakati tunaangalia ni simu gani watu wanasema nini, maswali gani watu wanauliza, na immediately tulipopata hiyo habari tukatumana habari mashinani kwamba waache kuambia watu warudi nyumbani. Na kweli tukarekebisha. Unaridhika na jinsi maafisa wenu wamesimamia kura hii mashinani? Kwa sababu ndio tuliona kuna wale ambao tulielezwa na mwenyekiti jana wamesimamishwa kazi. Je, kweli kumekuwa na uwajibikaji kutoka kwa maafisa wenu katika kutekeleza wajibu wao? Nitawapatia 90% wameajibika. Kusema kweli, hii kazi wanayofanya inataka mtu mkakamavu na mtu msema kweli, mtu ambaye ana uadilifu. Nitawapatia 90%. Lakini katika kila soko kuna mwandazimo wake. Hatukosi katika kundi la watu. Lakini kila nzi moja ndiye anaharibu mchuzi. Hapo basi. Jina kwa sababu ya hawa ambao hawajijukumika. Hapo basi, lakini 9%. hakuna uchaguzi ambao uko 100%. Yes. Kwa hivyo tukijipatia 90%, sijui wananchi watatupatia ngapi, but natarajia ni juu ya 50%.
Elders nao pia watafanya kura yao kesho.
Kesho tutafanya
kuanzia mwendo wa saa 10.
Hiyo ilikuwa kwa sababu ya hali ya security mashinani.
Na Moyale Kimskit ambayo ilipotea imepatikana ama bado?
Zote tu, wajua tunafanya kazi kwa utaratibu na security agency. Kwa hivyo tukipata jambo nini tunalipeana huko, inafanywa investigation. Mambo haya yote tuyanakili kila hatua kwa hatua, na tutakuja na ripoti tuiweke wazi. Manake mambo yote tunafanya kama tume, lazima huwa tunaweka wazi.
Naam, na tunaelekea kwa Brenda Zeda. Kuna dakika chache zilizopita tulielezwa Kakamega, Makueni, Isiolo na Mombasa kura bado ilikuwa inapigwa. Imekamilika?
Imekamilika, na kufikia sasa imekamilika. Laini hazikuwa sana vile ndefu.
Naam, kwa hivyo sasa hesabu ndo zinaendelea.
Hesabu zinaendelea mashinani.
Bila shaka tuko nanyi hapa kukesha. Naona usingizi ushaanza kuingia, lakini hatulali. Ni naibu mwenyekiti wa IEBC Juliana Cherera akitupa tathmini ya hali ilivyo kufikia sasa. Kura zimepigwa katika maeneo yote, na yale ambayo hayajapokea kura ama wenyeji hawajapiga kura, maeneo 8 wataweza kupiga tarehe 23 mwezi huu wa Agosti. Tuko hapa kukueleza na kukupasha na kinachoendelea. Asante sana kwa kututengea muda wako. Tunajua uko busy sana, lakini tunasema asante. Brenda Zeda, azamu ni yako sasa.
Zubeida, asante sana. Hata huku Kisumu County hatulali kabisa, tuko ngangari kuhakikisha kuwa tumeambia watazamaji wetu mambo yanavyoendelea huku Kisumu County. It's been a long day for us, I mean not in a negative way, but a long day in a good way, because we're here to witness the August 9th, 2022 general elections. I've been to different polling stations, Jomo Kenyatta Sports Ground, Aga Khan Hall, and right now I'm at Pand Peri Primary School, where the vote counting is still currently underway. They've already done the senatorial vote counting, and now they are just behind me, as you can see. Let me request my colleague. Those are the ballot papers for the woman representative. So they're about to do that vote counting process. Once this process is done, the results will be taken to the Kisumu Poly University. That is the Tallying center for Kisumu Central constituency, right there. And of course, those are other officials of the IEBC just tabulating some of the results. But let me just give you a breakdown of what I gathered so far at the National, for the National Assembly results. Sorry for that, I meant the National Assembly results for Kisumu Central at the Aga Khan Hall Polling Center. And what we have is that Joshua Oron of the ODM party has managed to garner 290 votes from Stream 3. We also have Fred Ouda, an independent candidate, who's managed to garner 137 votes. Zablon Awange has garnered 2 votes. Bran Lianda has garnered 1 vote. And Victor Radido, an independent candidate, just managed to garner 1 vote. Of course, Zubeida, this process will not end today, the vote counting. And of course, it is a process that will continue for the better part of this night. And we hope that come early morning, Kenyans will be able to know who, residents of Kisumu County will be able to know the people who've won various seats here in the county. And of course, we continue keeping a keen eye on what is happening here. So let me hand it over back to you, Latif, in studio. Latif, good evening.
Good evening, Brenda, and thank you very much for that report from Kisumu. Yes, we are still live, and like Zubeida said, we are here until the final vote is counted and until the final declaration is made by the IEBC chairperson and the IEBC commissioners. Good evening. We continue the live coverage of Kivumbi 2022 with what's happening around the country. I've got a new panel of guests with me at the round table. I'll start with my immediate left. Rita Oyer is a communication strategist. She's here with us. And Franklin Mukwanja is the executive director of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy Kenya, who is also an election observer this time, right? Yep. Part of the ELOG. We have Harriet Chigai is an advocate and Vice President Emeritus of the Law Society of Kenya. That's right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Osano Kucha, who's a governance specialist. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. You've just heard from the IEBC Vice Chairperson, Juliana Cherera, who says Yes, there were some polling stations which had not closed by 10 p.m., but now they've closed and counting has started. Overall, looking at the day and the way it's been going, what is your overview of the performance so far by the IEBC, by the voters, by the candidates? I'm going to start with you because you've got access to the various observers on the ground. Frank.
Thank you, and thanks for having us. I think the two critical questions beginning this morning were, does IEBC have the capacity and credibility to manage a potentially close contest and, of course, prevent the irregularities? And we have seen that in terms of technology, out of the 46,000 KIMS kits, less than 1,000 misbehaved for reasons here and there. There was quite a challenge in terms of transitioning and the clarity around the protocol to arrive at the manual register so that they can be identified, and even just the critical question of whether you should be turned away if you don't, you're not found, your details are not found in the KIMS kit. And that really disenfranchised a bit and frustrated a number of voters. But that clarity should have come in a little bit earlier. And of course, we understand the operational challenges. So in terms of IEBC answering the question of the capacity to conduct, to manage the election, the process, I think it's above average, and we can see that. The credibility is then beginning with the results transmission, and we've seen an improvement of that. If you look at the portal right now, it's about over 70% of the Form 34As have streamed in, and that tells you that there is an improvement. In terms of the voters, I think we have not seen bad incidents involving voters. In any case, we have seen them exercising patience and caution. Generally, we would say the voters are desperate to have a peaceful process. They want to participate, and the few or the number of violent incidents we have observed actually involving politicians and their aides. So the voters are generally coming in as collateral damage for the bad-mannered politicians. For voter turnout, the jury is still out there. Of course, at 4 p.m. we had the numbers. For me, at 56.7 at that time, which is about 12 million voters out of the 22, it does not look entirely bad. We have not had the update yet, but I think by morning we should be able to see. My guess would be about 65, 67, 70%, which is a decent outcome, knowing that the previous elections we may have had genetically modified outcomes at some instances. So I think by and large we should congratulate ourselves in the manner that the voters have behaved, the voters have turned out, examine the politicians and subject them to the law, the ones that have made this violent process. Continue encouraging IEBC for the work they've done, and usually have a challenge in terms of results transmission and declaration. Let's see how that gets to be improved on this occasion.
For that one now, the jury is still out.
The jury is still out there on credibility. In terms of capacity,
yeah.
I think the IEBC has put up a good show.
Harriet, what's your scorecard if you were to use the same issues that Franklin has given us? You know, the performance of the IEBC throughout in managing the election, managing communication, managing opening up the polling stations on time, the performance by the voters, the performance by the candidates.
Give or take out of 10, with 10 being the highest marks, I'll give IEBC around 7.5 in terms of preparedness. The reason as to why I say that, I would wish to compare these elections with the previous elections, and I want to be very specific, the ones I have participated, the last two elections. And going by even where I voted today morning, there was a lot of order, which has never been there. In fact, last elections, I remember my voting station, we had more than 13 voting polling or wherever entry
The
points
streams.
for the streams. I think there were about 26. Today there were about 13. And all the 13, they were so organized. 30 minutes, you voted, you're out. The Kim's kit, I walked in, you go online, you check, you verify your number, you are informed where your stream is, you go straight ahead to your stream. So there was quite an improvement in terms of order and how voting took place. In my station, there was no violence by the time I was leaving. In my station, IEBC officials were very, very useful. They were friendly. They were helping. They were actually going out of their way to find the elderly and assisting them, showing them where to go. I mean, it's unheard of. So by and large, of course, we've had logistical issues, but comparing with what we have seen in previous elections, give it to IEBC. This time round, they have tried. They have really tried. In terms of logistics, of course, we have seen in some stations there were problems. Kakamega County, as we speak, the gubernatorial elections have not taken place. That is really bad. But again, I think it was a good call to postpone those elections because you never know the level of exposure, So in my view, the voter turnout could have been good, bad. But again, I highly suspect we had a problem in the previous elections because if we are going to have, give or take, maybe 15% more of votes count or voter added, the number of voters who are voting this time around as compared to the last election, it goes a long way to communicate how the previous elections have been conducted. So for me, Kenyans, congratulations to them. For the first time, they have given decency to the vote. I actually feel proud having woken up today morning to go and vote. The violence from Kenyans is almost zero.
Wow.
Yeah.
You are
so
so
for
positive
me,
this evening, Harriet.
oh yeah. for me, give it to Kenyans. They have restrained themselves from dragging themselves into a violent situation. And it's my prayer because the last note to tie up these elections is actually verification now of the votes that are being tallied. So it is my prayer, but we continue like that up to the end. I mean, even if you talk to your friends outside the country, before this I had a session with the South African media house, and it's all kudos to Kenyans for having conducted themselves in a manner to suggest that they've given value to the vote. So the dignity of the vote you've casted today has minimum bloodshed. That is a plus. In fact, for me today, I feel very proud as a Kenyan. That is a plus.
We'll finish with you.
Yeah, so security-wise, there's also an issue. We left security-wise. For as long as there is no violence and people are not in the negative trajectory to cause violence, I want to believe the security forces are also well prepared. We have also seen communication, and IEBC has worked very well with the security forces where there's issues to do with elections. They've been able to arrest the situation at that time. So that is also a good thing. Previously, you would find polling stations, you close, there's no more voting going on. Save for what was happening in Wajir earlier in the morning, and I hope it was tamed and calmed down and people were able to vote, noting that in the ASAL regions, the voter numbers are they're few. I doubt whether Wajir will have the thousands of votes that we expect or we see in other counties. But by and large, I expect that if everything went well, they should have finished voting in those areas within six hours. So give or take, kudos to IEBC, kudos to Kenyans.
7.5 out of 10.
7.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rita.
I like Harriet's optimism. But again, I think people sit on different sides of this election cycle. There's something to be proud of in these elections. But what Harriet maybe fails to recognize is the voters are usually mostly not the problem. Daytime is usually not the problem. The problem starts at 6 p.m. when the tallying starts.
I said I hope it stays like that. I pray.
That is where usually the challenge comes because our Kenyans
democracy in Kenya is highly valued. Kenyans are politically active. They will show up, they will vote. To a large degree, there will be peace. The problem only starts when that thing that Skok said, illegality, irregularities, transparency, and that is something that we can only observe from evening going all the way to the announcement. It is not something we can say with confidence that we have crossed. Because if tomorrow something happens, like I've heard Kondele, there's some discrepancies of 107% turnout. You know, those are the small things that now will trigger the mess. But voters, kudos to them, they have done their part. Security forces, unlike other elections this time round, I can see they have participated in a way that has not really destabilize the psychological security of Kenyans, because that is what they have been doing. We've been asking them and IEBC, come on the same table so that when we see your boots on the ground, you're not sending the signal that there's a problem, you're sending the signal that you're safe. So at least to a large degree that has happened. Even the politicians, save for what has happened in Bungoma, I think I can also say they have really respected the democratic process. So I would only say, if I was to rate out of 10, I would give it a 6 and a wait and see. Wait and
so
see.
Bad.
No, it's wait and see, because a lot of things that really came up in 2017,
so it's a skeptical 6.
It's a 6 and calling on IEBC to stay the course. I can see, in fact, one of the things that I really love so far is how media has participated. I think in this election cycle, media has been my amazing friend. They have done a great job. They've gone over and above to give visibility, all the way from the manifestos, the communications, the debates, and even now the tallying. I think the first people to give visibility to the tallying was media houses and their tally centers. So we just hope this continues amicably. There was a small threat a few hours ago when Twitter seemingly was out, and Kenyans, of course, go into panic mode. Is that an Ministry of ICT issue situation? But generally, a 6 out of 10. Let's wait and see, and I hope we remain vigilant. I hope media helps us to remain vigilant. I hope the individual tallying centers for the parties also help us to remain vigilant. And I can see some congruence even in the numbers that are coming up. You know, the percentages are not very skewed. So the perception to the public is that everything is okay.
Everything is running smoothly.
Everything seems to be running smoothly, and we hope it stays this way. Hopefully by tomorrow evening, we'll be giving IEBC an 8 out of 10.
Osana, how much would you give IEBC so far?
Thank you very much, Latif. IEBC is part of Kenya. And I want to say that, whoever works in IEBC is actually, I think all of them are citizens of this country. So before I go to IEBC, I want to give Kenya, or Kenyans in general, my score to them. And I must say that, I've been around for quite some time, and I believe that Kenyans this time around have really behaved very well. You don't hear of the kind of violence and the kind of tension we had. And, even if you are moving around during the campaigns, people would argue. But at the end of the day, you go home, part ways, come back the following day, you're still arguing, but no violence, was ever, witnessed. And that has been carried, all the way to this time. There were some issues, earlier on, when the Venezuelans, came in and all those kind of things. But I think after the IEBC chairman and the DCI director, came out and said they've resolved that thing, I don't think we really had much out of this thing. And I think Kenyans, therefore, started having confidence, building confidence in IEBC. And so far, giving Kenyans in general, I think I would give them around 8 out of 10. IEBC, I would give them 7.5 out of 10. And let's wait and see what happens after that.
So which Kenyans are you giving the 8 out of 10? The 56% or thereabouts who turned up to vote? How about the 44% who didn't?
Fortunately, whatever the percentage that came out to vote, that is what represents the entire population of Kenya. So we are going to declare a president based on the 56%. And therefore, the 44% who did not turn out gave out their powers to the 56. So I'm giving the 8 out of 10 to the entire 100% because the 44 are represented within the 56.
You know, in previous elections, when results have been declared, the vibe around the country has been, look at the election results. This country is divided down the middle. If we were to go with that, 57%, let's go up to 57, 58% voter turnout, right? If 4 p.m. it was 56%, within 1 hour, let's take it to 58%. 58% versus 42%. This country is divided.
No, this country is not divided, according to me. And from my knowledge in statistics, at the end of the day, there's a reason why certain people did not participate. And you actually then factor them in to the population. So if you're talking about the 56% or call it 60% voter turnout at the end of the day, that's your 100% population that you're talking about. So it will not be, if you're talking about they're divided in terms of what? We cannot really attribute reasons why the 40% did not vote. So we can't really say that, you see, they didn't vote because they didn't want an election. There could be, other reasons. So until we go in and understand why they did not vote, we cannot really say that Kenya is divided. We can only talk about the 56% or the 60% who voted and say they represent the entire population of Kenya. And therefore, the division now comes in. How are they divided if we are talking about the presidential candidate? How are they divided amongst the 4 presidential candidates that we have? That's now where you'll actually be talking about the division. So if we come out and find that 2 of the presidential candidates have almost 50-50, then Kenya is divided in the middle at the end of the day.
That is, allow me to...
Who goes first? The lady goes first.
Okay. Thank you for being very kind, and I hope he has allowed that.
Yes,
about voter apathy, there could be many reasons or factors as to why. And from where I sit, you'll realize that Kenyans could have just been tired. The politicking could have been too much. Look at it that way, this way, where you're told, fine, does your vote really count? It will be stolen anyway. So if you find many Kenyans have that lethargy and their mindset is stuck to the position where when I cast my vote, whether I wake up at 4 a.m. and cast my vote, it will be stolen anyway. We have deep states. Deep state is known to have been stealing elections for the longest time. Why do I say that? The politicians themselves have said it. So it is out there. So the confidence in the vote is what maybe drove Kenyans not to step up or step out. When you look at the young people, in fact, I met quite a number who didn't even care. They didn't have the vote.
So they didn't care to register.
They didn't care to register. And most of those who tried to get IDs, they could not get their IDs. So we have made the processes too difficult, Why does it have to take 3 years for me to get my ID? Just an ID. Why can't we be able to issue these IDs by the time these young people are leaving high school? By the time I'm finishing my 4th year, my Form 4, it's even better that these IDs are delivered in schools. It then means the administrative process in the country is just not working for us. You find now Kenyans are struggling to fit in. It's like you're struggling to fit in your own house. Your seats, they keep being arranged, So those are some of the reasons as to why. When you ask young Kenyans, why don't you have a vote? They say, but I went, I registered. Now I'm told I have to go to the chief. I don't know where. Why can't we make these things simple? Right now, I have the new driving license. Why is it that an ID is such a big problem in this country? Why are we segregating? Why are these chiefs holding these IDs?
But Harriet, there are close to 8 million people who have an ID who have registered to vote who did not vote today.
But I've given a reason towards that. I've said one
Fatigue.
of them could just be fatigue. We are tired. You know, you call your buddy in the morning and they say, by the way, me, I'm not going to queue. It's too cold. Why? Those people are just the same. You know, there's no, you know, they don't feel motivated to wake up and go and vote. And the question is why? Now, look at the political class. We have also failed to mentor leaders. So the story of leadership and the manifestos are not changing. For instance, I read Vision 2030. If that document is actualized to the latter, we have a first world country.
We don't need
and
manifestos.
we don't need manifestos. And again, remember, Kenya is a very beautiful country, as he has said. By the way, in East Africa, we are leading. In fact, the other time I had guests, they crossed over to Uganda. When they came back, they said, let us go back to the first world in East Africa. So, I mean, we have a beautiful country. The question is, what next? All these manifestos that we are putting in place, if we do not have a proper plan to deliver, if it's not in our hearts to deliver a country, not to us, not to these people here are so old. Anyone seated here and discussing about this country should be thinking about their children and grandchildren. If we are thinking about ourselves, and that is where we have failed for the long time, it's about me. But if I'm thinking about my grandchildren, right now I'm not even thinking of my children. Let me think about the future of my grandchildren. So what is our plan? What is our 10, 5, what is our 5, 10, 15, 25, 30, and now 60 plan for this country? If we start thinking like that, then the question of age is a non-issue here. You know, we have to be thinking long time. Sadly, we think short term.
They are thinking too short term.
Yeah, we are thinking
Frank, you had a
too
point you
short
wanted
term.
to jump in,
I think
especially.
I feel that we have engaged very high gears. So allow me to scale down the staircases a bit before we go to the very critical issue of voter turnout and the political platforms that these parties have contested on. The first question of capacity and credibility is critical, because when you're talking about the capacity, it is about the preparedness of IEBC, and it was keenly their work. And to that extent, I agree with everyone in terms of that, because they were able to plan. The organizational ability was good in terms of deploying, in terms of anticipating challenges, and in terms of communicating. They have done a good job. The issue of credibility goes beyond IEBC. While capacity is in control of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, the issue of credibility of the electoral process goes beyond the IEBC to other electoral institutions. So the issues that have come out today, Eric, the issues of violence, to what extent are we going to see the responsible individuals reined in? It's not IEBC's duty. It is the security apparatus to investigate. It is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the judiciary to make sure that these are addressed. The officers of IEBC that we have had over the few days messing up, you know, we need to see what are the actions, and that is what will contribute the fairness and transparency of the process, you know. And we know that these other electoral institutions are the ones that bring in problems in terms of results transmission and interference of the freeness and the fairness of the process. So that goes beyond IEBC. And my pleas then are other electoral institutions keen from day 2, beginning 6 p.m., 5 p.m. when the polling stations started closing. Are they contributing to the credibility process in a good way in terms of their actions and making sure that the process is secured? On the issue of voter turnout, the second question, other than the capacity and credibility of IEBC, was always going to be how will the country's economic situation affect voter turnout and the behavior of voters. And that is coming out clearly, because voting is a civic duty. At its core is democracy. The more people participate in voting, the more people exercise their voting, is important because then it creates interest in the politicians to represent their, it creates momentum in the politicians to represent their interests. Where voters are sitting back and where you have a low voter turnout, and I disagree with your estimate, I think we'll hit at about 65%.
Really?
Thereabout, 65, 67,
That's
I think.
high.
So 4 p.m.
Let me finish.
We are at, okay.
Yes, I just disagree with you
Okay.
that we will remain at 56 and not get to 60.
Okay.
I think we'll go beyond 60 to about 65. Why I'm keen on this is because voting is a clear issue of making choices. There are social issues on this ballot. There is agriculture. There is issues of capital punishment. The issues of reproductive rights. The issues of religion. These issues affect everyone. They affect anyone, and it's important that voters come out and are encouraged to continue voting. You get the point? So if we don't speak at the ballot, what are we talking about? Economic priorities? What are we talking about? Taxation? What are we talking about? Unemployment that and the current economic situation that is on the ballot. So
maybe what we are saying is that we don't trust that any of these processes
in fact,
will
I
be
could
sorted.
just pick it from there once it's done.
Yeah. So the point I'm making, Latif, is that it will be simplistic for us just to discuss the voter turnout now. But look at it that you see, elections, yes, are an important aspect to our democracy, but it's not sufficient. It's not a sufficient indicator to making progress of our democracy, and we should go beyond asking ourselves, beyond the election D-Day, how are citizens engaging in terms of bolstering democratic and institutional performance? How are citizens engaged in political accountability? All right?
I hear you contradicting yourself there.
No, I'm not contradicting myself. That I am simply saying that one, it is a civic duty, right? And whichever the numbers that have turned out, we cannot just discuss that because we don't have sufficient voters that turned out, and then we have a problem. We have to make sure that we are responding to the long term. Election day voter numbers are good, but we must ensure that in the long term, are we having citizens engaging in political accountability discourse? Are we having voters engaging in how to bolster democratic and institutional performance? Are we having voters participating in the general governance discourse, just beyond saying they didn't turn out and because of some reasons? For sure, the current economic situation was going to affect voter turnout by people saying, I am not going to find any solution at the ballot. Let me focus on bringing my next meal on the table. Or going to affect the behavior of the voters in terms of how, they'll conduct themselves.
And the choices that they make. Rita, jump in.
Yes, so I agree with everybody. I agree with Harriet, I agree with Frank. The issue of voter turnout is very important for the exact reason that he has highlighted and you have highlighted. You see, our assumption that when people go to the ballot, they're simply going to tick boxes is where we get it wrong from day one and all through the 5 years of governance. Because literally, an election should be, we have had a conversation, I have bought your pitch, I believe in it, I'm going to endorse it at the ballot. But if this conversation fails somewhere, then we are no longer communicating, I have no reason to show up. And that is exactly where public participation continues failing at county levels, at national level, when people are making budget. You cannot ask people who did not show up to vote, the 40% who didn't show up to vote, to suddenly be interested in what their county assemblies are doing. So because we have built our democracy and we have handled the election exercise as if voters are here and democracy is here and then state and governance is here. So every 5 years we come to you, do this thing, go tick these boxes, 6-piece, whatnot, and then we will go to government and we do what we want. And that is where the democracy narrative fails for me. And except where there's an incumbent, and you'll see the pattern, where the incumbent is trying to come back, the voter turnout will be very high. Then when there's a new person coming in, yeah, people are like, okay, transition, people are like, okay, Then when the incumbent is trying to hold on to power, then people are motivated. They do everything within their capability, and you'll just see the cycle. It keeps going like that. Because we have made the state or the governance thing so premium that the democracy issue becomes, how do we say, an escort. Like the voters are an escort to your agenda. So it is a very critical indicator for me in terms of how these voters will engage with governance issues for the next 5 years. They will be disinterested, they will not participate, we'll keep going back to the issues of public participation, the constitution will keep failing, and it will just be another sad cycle. That's why for me this issue of voter turnout has to be completely interrogated. We need to know where we went wrong. Was it from getting new voters in? Was it from like she's saying, or she's talking about IDs and chiefs. The most interesting thing I've had this week is people who didn't go to vote because they thought Fuliza people will catch them. It is it's the funniest propaganda that I had this Safaricom line, and then I had a Fuliza bill, and then I didn't pay it. I bought another one. So if I use my number to vote in this polling station, on the day of voting, they will come and catch me.
They'll catch up with me.
So many people, I had it on Sunday. I didn't even understand it on Sunday when someone mentioned it. I had it yesterday, and then I had it again today. And these are very, very, they're not boardroom things. If you sit on this table and you talk this high-level conversation, you will not know that these are decision-making factors. And then the factor of people going to vote in their rural areas. My house help, for example, has to go with all her children, one, to vote in her rural area in Awasi, but two, because she's running away from potential violence. Where is she going to get 10,000 to exercise? I mean, I barely pay her twice that amount. So why is she using half her salary to actually go vote and then run away from violence? How is she expected to survive for the rest of the month in this economy? So I think we have to really interrogate these things beyond superficially if we are hoping to do better for democracy and for, like you're saying, it's a civic duty, but this civic duty cannot be exercised by me out of goodwill. The government and the infrastructure has to be able to support this. In fact, I kept asking, why was there not a whole SGR campaign after we spent so many billions? Just the train infrastructure alone to take people to these voting areas at a subsidized cost. Because what has all this expenditure and debt been for if it can't? I mean, Uhuru was joyriding to Kisumu the other day just to show that it is working. Why did we not see it subsidizing traffic in that direction for to vote, for example? Why did we not see? Because I saw Mombasa and Taita Taveta who are struggling to get there to vote. So our democracy is not cohesive. We are not linking democracy and governance. People are not seeing where the dots join, and therefore they're dropping off. They're dropping off the conversation and they're not showing up at the ballot.
So participation is a chore.
Yeah, allow me to add on before I lose the point on the issue of chiefs and the propaganda. You see, it is really sad that the last week before elections, the same chiefs were mobilizing within polling stations and forcing people to vote in a particular direction. That has been in the media. In various stations. The Nyumba Kumi program, if indeed chiefs are able to identify their local personnel up to their homes, it also is another problem when it comes now to civic education and voter training, and there CMB comes in. Why then does it mean Kenyans are that gullible that any propaganda sells? Does it mean then we have not trained or we have not enlightened Kenyans to the extent that they value that vote, Then that becomes a very, very, very sad situation, because we are using the same resources we have to do the wrong things vis-a-vis enlightening Kenyans on the right things. So those are also areas that we need to change. We have also seen technology in terms of areas of improvement, Then we need to map out technology and make proper use of technology more vis-a-vis human beings as resource persons. IEBC again sent us text to remind us that we need to go and vote. We all received that with a link of how you're going to verify your... It means then, if all Kenyans can afford a phone, then we are good to go. In fact, I look forward to the next elections where I just vote from my house.
From wherever you are.
Yeah, I don't need to go and queue, you know.
Osana.
Now,
Yeah.
I think we use certain terms like governance and all those kind of things. What we lack in this country, and I think all over the world, is proper planning and thinking about where we should be going. From where I come from my training and everything, nothing happens without you knowing your population. You know, this one country where the Minister of Education has no idea how many standard 1 children we have in school. We've talked about voter registration. Why do we do voter registration? If we are supposed to vote at the age of 18 and above, why can't we register children born on the day they are born? When they reach 18, they are eligible to vote. They don't need another card to vote. They are Kenyans. When they die, register them as dead and remove them from any civic duty in future, because they can't vote when they're dead. So we have a lot of multiple registrations in this country. We have a lot of things which are being done because that's how we were conditioned to do it. In my view, you'll find, I'll take for example, Homa Bay County. I hear some of my friends talking about Homa Bay. Oh, we don't have a good governor, all these kind of things. The person is talking about a good governor in Homa Bay County votes in Nairobi. So you have no business talking about a governor of Homa Bay County, because that's not your county. So we can tie some of these things, including your taxes, where you say, I am actually registering and I vote in a given constituency. My taxes, 25% of the taxes are paid to the government of Kenya, will go to the place where I vote. Therefore, I have a right to ask, where has my 25% of the money I've been paying gone? I can then recall the MP or the governor and things like that, so that the chief that you're talking about in that area cannot go and force somebody to do something which is against my will. I have a right to go and tell them, no, I pay taxes, and part of my taxes come to this constituency, so that I have a civic duty. The voter turnout then becomes an issue. Somebody will now say, I am actually going to vote because my voting affects where my money goes to. So, if we were to do that, and then we don't have to travel. In fact, it's important you talked about this thing about traveling. I think you didn't really talk about it well. If you look at the cost of traveling to go and register as a voter, come back, then travel to go and vote, come back, that cost is enormous. We're talking, it runs into billions of shillings. Now, that's a loss to the country. Why the hell are we using that? If we were to have these things, where I can actually vote because I have registered in Homa Bay or Kisumu or something like that, and wherever I'm sitting, I will vote. And once I vote, why do we have KEMS kits? We can do this. We don't need KEMS.
It's because of trust. We'll talk about trust. Let's take a break.
That trust.
I want us to take a break. It's about 5 minutes after midnight. We are already into Wednesday. Vote counting is still ongoing in various parts of the country. We are getting the results coming in, and our data center is jam-packed with all the information. Ken Mijungu is there. Ken, what's the latest from across the country?
Of course, Eric, you expect there's a lot of development across the country. First off, from the IEBC portal, I'd like to bring to your attention that about only 8,000 polling stations have not reported out of the 46,229, because the IEBC is reporting 37,858. Now, the question at this particular point, Eric, is, does this mean that all the Form 34As have been received so they can collect? Well, there's another process that is coming up. They have to all be tallied at the Constituency Tallying Center before they are forwarded to the National Tallying Center. So the collation and total tallying still outstanding. So in spite of the fact that we have about 8,000 not outstanding, 8,000 still outstanding, we have a clear view of how the system of the IEBC is working, because as at now, about 6 hours since the closure of the polls, having to receive 34 from 34As to the tune of 37,858. Well, that's good work for the IEBC. So I'd like to come here and also show you something that is happening. Now, this keeps on changing, Eric. We have Raila Odinga and William Ruto oscillating between who's at the top and who's at the bottom. But let's not forget the bottom too. That's Professor Wajakoya, who has just a paltry 0.49% with about 802 votes. And of course, Wahiga Mwaure, who has 348. That's about 0.23% of the total votes. Majority of the votes tonight go to Raila Odinga and William Ruto. And so far, out of the 22,120, 458 registered voters in this election, which the IEBC never gave us an update. So we're still assuming about 12 million or 13 million of Kenyans came out to vote. The lowest, by the way, ever. Because if you look at 2017, look at the number of registered voters in 2013. I hope I can get it. 2017, 19,610,000, and valid was 15 million at that time. That is in 2017. Let's look at 2013. 2013 is just loading. 14 million registered voters. Valid in that election with less than about 1.9 million were 12 million voters in that election. Now, right now, according to the IEBC, those who voted in this election are about 12 million, which means we have even gone lower than 2013, yet we had 22 million registered voters. And I like the conversation you're having there, Eric. Voter apathy and all that, and the reasons why people needed to have voted and why we didn't see a lot of people voting. So that is the fact tonight. So here is where we stand. As at now, the valid votes, according to our map here, is 166,156 out of the 12 million that was declared by the IEBC. But I also want to report something, that there are other media houses that are reporting about 200,000 already. We're not far off. Our map is failing. So I want to just go back to the map and show you very interesting statistics here, Eric, if you would just look at this map. So let's begin. Let's begin with the 2022 map and look at the areas that I've declared. Can they correlate with what declared in 2013? So let's take, for example, Marsabit. This is Marsabit right now. Looks yellow, but I'll break it down again. It's not necessarily true that Marsabit has gone yellow. But let's look at 2013. What happened in Marsabit? Was it yellow? Was it Jubilee? Remember, the Deputy President, William Ruto, was in Jubilee Party and he still expects the votes. Look at 2017. What happened in 2017? Still circulated. Marsabit in 2017 also went red. Let's take a look at 2013. What happened in 2013? Was Marsabit red or orange? In 2013, Marsabit was orange. So this was given to CORD back then in 2013. But in 2017, it went red to Jubilee. And of course, it started looking yellow in 2022. But that's not all. Let's even forget about Marsabit. There's this section of the map, Eric, that I like to center our attention on briefly. And let's just highlight it. This is from Pokot, where we see a little yellow. Let's just look at it, try and circulate it. Look at how it behaved back in 2017 and 2013, because this can give us a clear picture. So let's look at this in 2017. How did it look like in 2017? Exactly, it went red. In 2017, I just a little bit expanded this map. So if I expand it a little more, you can see also in 2017, it went red. Now it's looking yellow at this particular point. A pointer of things to come? Well, I don't know, because things are changing, but that's how it looked. In 2013, let's see if it went orange or it went red. In 2013, the same thing. You see, the pattern is basically the same in every election, that section. But away from that, I want to give another example of 2022 so that we see what happens in this election. So let me pick Wajir and Garissa, for example, and try to look at 2013 and 2017. So first, I'm gonna put this out of the map just by drawing it, because I want the other map to reflect exactly. So this is Wajir. Let's look at 2017. How did Wajir vote? And Garissa, how did they vote? In 2017, same thing. It went red. Look at what's happening right now. Let me just go back a little. Look at 2022. It's blue right now, but we are not calling it for Azimio. We're just saying it went blue, but in 2017, it went red. That means the Jubilee Party scored the whole of Wajir and Garissa. In 2013, let's see what happened in 2013. It was orange. That was for CORD. So effectively, things might change when if CORD right now, I mean, If Azimio right now takes it, then it's just gone back to the votes that Raila Odinga got in 2013. And finally, I just want to pick one more area of the map just to illustrate before I break it down for you. Let me pick one more area of this map. Yes, I'm going to explain this map in detail, but I want to go back just one more section because a lot of interest is in this. So I'd like to pick, for example, this area here, just highlight it, and then I'll explain. So let's highlight Busia, Kakamega, Vihiga, Kisumu, Kisii, Migori, Homa Bay, and Siaya. Let's see how that voted in 2017. Then I'll explain. So in 2017, this is how it looked like. Exactly, the map remained the same, just a little bit up here that has not declared. That is Bungoma, that has not declared. But if exactly that's what happens, then we will see the same pattern. In 2013, let's see what happened in that specific area. The same thing, right? The same thing. So basically, Eric, the more things change in this election, the more they remain the same. However, I can't hand it back over to you without explaining a little bit of what we are seeing tonight. And I'll use a few examples. Let me pick, for example, Kilifi here. Kilifi has gone yellow according to our map, but out of Kilifi County with 586,602, the truth is only Magarini has declared. So only the polling stations in Magarini have declared in this election. Malindi is still outstanding, Ganze, Kilifi North, Kaloleni, Kilifi South, and Rabai is still outstanding. So the reason why in the original map you see this area of Kilifi only yellow is because the dominant vote have gone to William Ruto, who is in our map yellow. So the fact that he's leading with the few polling stations that have declared, it has to go yellow. However, as I said, if anything changes this night, for example, if we would have different votes coming all the way from this area for Raila Odinga, or even reducing a little bit of this, definitely the whole of this area will make Magarini disappear because there are 4 more and it will definitely be blue. So the only problem is this, it's a small representation of the number of polling stations that have voted and declared so far. So in Magarini, for example, take a look at this and let's look. Samuel Ruto has gotten 1 vote in Magarini, which has declared. Now, because of that single vote in that area, Ruto is at 100%. Magarini is 100%. That's why it's all in red. Raila Odinga, no vote so far. So it means from a polling station that counted only 1 vote, and that vote belonged to William Ruto. So it's 100%. So if you look at that map, you get a representation that somehow tells you that Kilifi has gone all yellow, but it's not gone all yellow. And finally, I'll give you an example now with Garissa. Garissa indicates that it's blue. But look at what areas of Garissa have voted in this, have submitted their forms 34A. It's only this small section of Garissa. So this is Kimbalambala and Garissa town. And out of this, look at what it tells us. Raila Odinga has 250 and William Ruto has 195. Now, because of that, Eric, we see the whole of it blue, but that is a very small fraction of what we're getting tonight. So the map gets filled up tonight, and we'll definitely be breaking it down to you to the final vote to tell you who voted where and why the map looks blue and yellow. And if Raila Odinga continues leading or William Ruto overtakes or whatever happens, we'll be here to show you those, because numbers, as they say, never lie. Numbers like facts never lie. You just need to know where to apply the numbers. Back to you, Latif.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. Indeed, that's a magic wall, just touching it and showing us exactly what's happening across the country, going deep into various civic wards as well, and seeing the number of polling stations that have already announced the results. 82.36% according to the IEBC portal reported Form 34As. Then, of course, those ones then will be collated and go into 34B and then into 34C. And just looking at the map, and we're seeing the results coming in so far, it's still early days. There is still a lot that we expect to see in terms of, depending even per region, which particular polling stations have declared so far, which particular constituency, which particular county this is, which particular region it is. That's why it's still showing a lot of, fluctuations between what Raila Odinga has and what William Ruto has. But if you just look at the kind of transmission this time that and Rita, you had alluded to that, the access to information this time, the access to information from the media being able to announce, from the agents themselves just being able to tell their own political parties at the headquarters, the political parties being able to do their own tallying. Are you seeing us going the entire 7 days before we get to know how the presidential election is going?
No, in my view, this will just take, by tomorrow evening, someone should be able to make some decent projection. I believe the visibility, the transparency, the access to information all round has really, really helped this election process. And also the decision to change the transmission from textual to imaging. So it means if this form is up on the portal, it's the way it was received and nobody has retyped anything or re-entered anything. So that gives it a lot of credibility, and now it depends on how quick your Excel sheet is really, and your formulas. And again, what's most amazing for me is that there's really not too much disparity between the various tallying center. It could be like 1 point or 2 points depending on who inputted what data early. So I think this transparency, this visibility, and this access to information is really impressive, and this is what a digital age should look like in an election cycle. I am so glad we have come this far. So now we just need to fix it backwards in terms of how we vote, because like Kuta was saying, if I can bank on my phone, it's money. I can bank on my phone. I can transact money from here to whichever country. A vote, that should be an easy thing. And again, it goes to the issue of ballot papers. In fact, if I can see a modicum of risk in this election, is this issue of ballot papers. First of all, why are we printing them where? Why does it have more security features than our legal tender? Why is it that if there's an error, it's almost like magic to fix it, you know? And those are expensive exercises for something that should be as simple as photocopy, you know? So I feel the transparency, the transmission, the visibility, the alignment, the access is really great. Now we need to work backwards to reduce the burden of how we get this data in from the voters, and we'll be good to go. If we can do this in the next 5 years, 5 years, I'd be so high. I think we'd have 100% voter turnout in 2027.
Kuta, we already have so many, over 80% of the Form 34As. They've got to go into 34B, and then we start getting a clearer picture of what's happening at the constituency level. Do you think the transmission this time is more transparent, is better than we have seen in previous elections?
It's much better than we've seen in the previous elections, because basically the photos which are being transmitted, you can't change it. However, from my training, I understand that, you know, when you move something from a printed text or a photocopied text and you have to type it into something else, you're introducing an error. And that is actually a point at which we can actually, claim rigging. It could just be an error, but somebody can actually talk about rigging, where 45 becomes 54 or 86 becomes 68. Now, those are some of the things we need to really, sort out, because we literally computerized the manual system. Even this is called Form 34A to 34B to 34C, 35, whatever, was because we were used to things coming from a manual system, a manual, paper being transferred to another manual paper to another. If we were to actually just do this thing completely electronically, then those forms
will automatically.
I will actually get to know, by the end, when you close the polling station, I know who has won.
It will tally automatically.
Because the whole thing has actually been done. But going back to your question, yes, I think there's more transparency now, but we can do much better by really trusting ourselves and having these things all electronically, where nobody can actually, hack in and change anything.
Harriet?
It's interesting. Just like I said, the reason as to why most did not come out to vote, including even the areas where we expected a huge number of people to vote, is because there's this perception that presidents are selected. They're not elected. And the choice and the fact that we appeared to pretend that we were voting was just to tell us that there's an illusion of choice. But indeed, there is no choice.
At least you are considered.
And yes, at least you are your voice was heard. You know, it's a nice thing. In fact, today I saw parents coming in with kids, which for me, I thought that is quite something, because we're already inculcating the culture of democracy in these young kids. But the question is, by the time they reach our age, will they have seen the value of that strife? And I think yes, because this election has actually shown there is goodwill for us to cross over and start using technology as a way of making our life easier. We have now moved, you know, a good election should be verifiable and auditable and credible as well. So where we have reached, I think there is now goodwill for us to say we can move to the next step. And the next step to ensure that the elections are credible is for us to completely automate the election system. The KIMS-KIT, you know, it's able to identify voters. I have seen everybody is up in arms saying they don't want to use their biometrics. But the question then is, you were born. When you were born, there's a pool. There's somewhere where your bios were taken, including your DNA, who is your father, who is your mother. You were given a certificate of birth. We even got to know your blood group, which most of us don't know until you're so sick and you have to find out your blood group. Yet these things are supposed to be in the open. You know, by a click of a button, I should be able to see my medical history from the time I was born to where I am right now. And that boils down to data mining, data analysis, centralizing data, and doing it properly so. The problem with us in Africa, we have centralized corruption in everything. Even when we want to clean up the data, we have to still put a few people there who we know very well are not there.
That's a problem internationally.
Yeah, that's an international.
It's a
well,
global problem.
thank you for correcting that. But if we really want to do things right, if we want to change our governance system, if we want to improve our systems, we have to accept that we are now come of age. And that is why I'm saying today I'm very happy, because we have been told the marginal errors that human beings are quick to put in place can actually be reduced. And they can actually be reduced to 0.00001% if we really, we human beings want to make that change. I was arguing with a colleague, and they were arguing about their biometrics and why they don't have fingerprints. And it's interesting because it's just a fingerprint. That is one bio-identification tool. We can take your eye wherever, retina. They're called the retina. It's yours. Nobody else can have it. Your DNA is yours. Nobody can. I mean, there's so many ways of doing this verification that we just complicate issues. Also boils down now, when you look at the behavioral change of Kenyans, especially the young people. And I like using the young people because they are the future of this country. When you talk to the teenagers right now and you have sittings with them, most of them are not talking about employment. Most of them are actually talking about being entrepreneurs. Most young kids right now are actually looking for money to invest in something. They're actually coalescing together and they are trying to think of what next. What next can we do? I mean, the current students in campus, they're very impressive. And if we then go back and inculcate governance in children, you know, right now we are concentrating on adults. Let us now take it to the education level and try and see if we, the old people, cannot change our mindset, then can we change kids? And the answer is yes. And we can start at the age of 6. You know, if we can be able to mold these kids by the time they are the age of 13, their mindset, their thinking is completely, totally different. That is where we want this country to go. And in most cases, I always tell people, we need to allow these small minds to have arguments with even grown-ups. You know, when we were growing up, there was no way you could have an argument with that senior person. You were rude, bottom line. Despite the fact you are actually saying some sense. You know, right now when I listen to young kids, the boys, they know so many cars. They'll even tell you, you know, you don't know how to ignite or you don't know how to press your pedal. Because if you press that pedal, your car can actually put, the speed ratio is between 3 to 5 seconds. And in your mind, you're thinking, I didn't know that. But because it's a child, you say, shut up.
Yeah. You don't
So,
want to allow them to
yeah,
do it.
because you don't want to learn from a child. And that is exactly what I'm saying. We have now come of age, and we now need to allow these brains to start thinking.
To move to the next level.
Yeah, to start analyzing issues, to question. In fact, for me, I like it when people question my thinking, because you're making it better. So can all of us accept that our brains know so much, but at times you can also learn from...
We challenge ourselves.
Yeah,
to move
let's
to
challenge
the next
ourselves.
level.
Yeah, let's challenge ourselves to the next. It's never personal. Learning never stops.
Indeed.
You know?
I want us to conclude the conversation shortly, and just circling back to the issue of, I mean, we're seeing the results coming in. Ken, with the Super Wall, we've got the IEBC portal. They've said everybody can access and see the number of polling stations that have declared and the Form 34As that have arrived to our station. Going into the next 24 hours, Rita had started by saying, by the end of the day tomorrow, we are likely, all of us, to be projecting who has won the presidency. And by the end of the day tomorrow, then it's also assuming that we already know who the next MCA is, who your MP is, who your woman rep, senator, and governor is likely to be. Do you agree with that?
Yes and no.
Let's start with the no.
The no is because there is a process to it, and we have to follow that process, keenly beginning with the duration that IEBC, the returning officer, the National Tallying Center, the chair of IEBC has. He has 7 days to declare the results. So there is no hurry to get the results. Let him take the time to be able to tally the results, because what you're forgetting is that all these returning officers, 290, will have to travel to the...
They have to come to Bomas.
Yes, they'll have to come to Bomas. It is going to take, and if you look at the numbers from the portal, for instance, it's good that technology is improved, and the transmission of results particularly, which was a minus in the 2013 and 2017 election, has really progressed. For day one, election night, to have such kind of returns is good. But you're looking at the areas that have not brought in significant results are the traditionally marginalized Samburus, Isiolo, Turkana, Mandera, and such. These are still far-flung counties, and they have to make their way to Nairobi. So I don't really anticipate. Yes, projections, fine. We will have some projections depending on how much we progressed from the A's to the B's and to the C's, all the way to the National Tallying Center. So the projections may be there, but in terms of declaring the results...
Projection can happen tomorrow.
Yes,
but
in terms of declaring the results...
We've got to give Chebukati the time.
Let's give Chebukati the time.
7 days, end on Monday.
Yes, I think we need that time.
Yeah.
The second thing I want to mention is let's not be very pushy and almost being premature in terms of introducing how to further build technology into our electoral process. It's still an area that is being really trialed, and as much as we progressed around M-Pesa and such, politics is a whole different ballgame, and we must be sure that we have other encumbrances of data privacy, the ownership of data. One of the challenges that we had with with loading of the KIMS kit was that there was a contest on the issue of the data. And you can see the ownership issue coming out, the data privacy, the how to make sure that this is tamper-proof. The cost, the highest cost of this election actually is the purchase of the technology. It's costing us 4+ billion shillings. That's just purchasing the rights. If you look at the deployment, the human resource that is required, the storage, it's mind-boggling figures. And then look at our own political culture. Is that this country's elections, yes, we have the secrecy of the ballot and one man, one vote, but also to agree that we generally a country of elites deal making, and those interests will always play out on to what extent are these elites satisfied that technology will give them a chance. Going full blown will limit the chances to do the deal making. And these are things that we have to put at the back of our mind. And these are things. I think we need to look at the more, the low-lying fruits. We have a clear challenge, and I think Harriet and Kute mentioned this. we have a problem with our civil registry, that data is faulty. Between the civil registry, we have a fight with the guys at the Bureau of Statistics, and we just don't have the correct figures that we'll always work with. It's not possible. Even those departments are underfunded. It's not possible to tell how many deaths, how many births, to keep track of this thing. I think we need to improve in that, so that you have an automated system that makes sure you hit 18, you are born, you're born, you hit 18, you are an automatic voter, you enter the voter's roll, you die, and you're out of the system, and all these things. Finally, on the issue of young people, and I think it's good that we encourage that. We need to socialize, we need to induct, we need to offer political education. Of course, one of the things that we've seen in these manifestos currently is the quality of education. We're talking about the academia, but we need to move young people from civic awareness to civic action. They require proper political education to be able to act. And if this country is about 75+%, in fact, we're a toddler nation. We have a bigger population between 5 and 14. And when you stretch to about 40, it goes to about 80%. That would we even want to introduce a much broader debate of possibly lowering even the age of majority, that instead of beginning to vote at 18, can we lower it to 16, so that we compel possibly a 12-14-year-old to start thinking about governance, leadership, because they have to make the decision. At the end of the day, Latif, we will have a president and a president with privileges.
That's true. And I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening, for coming to help us contextualize the matters as we've been discussing them. Rita Oyer is a communication strategist. Franklin Kwanja is the Executive Director, Center for Multi-Party Democracy, Kenya. Kuti Osano is a governance specialist, and Harriet Chigai is an advocate and Vice President Emeritus of the Law Society of Kenya. My name is Eric Latif. Ken Mijungu and I have been with you since 8 o'clock, just giving you the numbers of what's happening across the country, reaching out to our correspondents from across the country. Ken touching the magic wall and showing us the numbers. We want to hand over now to our Swahili team. Ali Manzu here. But before we do that, Ken,